Good evening and welcome to Talking Sports with Evan. I'm Evan Watalis and going to have a guest scheduled to join us any moment now. He'll be coming out, Tristan Thomas, friend of show. And today's show going to be talking Packers victory over the Seahawks, their upcoming game over the New Orleans Saints, the NBA Cup, and the new Rodgers documentary has had some head-scratching comments made, and I'm going to give my thoughts on that. And I'm going to do all of this hoping that my computer battery survives the scheduled life of the show. I left my computer charger at the office, and it's a little bit snowy out there, so I can't really go back and get it to make sure I have a full battery life. So I'm going to make sure and hope, I guess I should say, that I can get through tonight's show without my battery dying. That is my goal. So if I just disappear completely randomly out of the blue, that is the reason why. But fingers crossed, I can get through the show without the battery on my laptop dying. But we're going to start off talking the Packers. The Packers get the victory over the Seattle Seahawks 30-13 on Sunday Night Football. And to me, a very convincing victory overall. And I know that the offense faltered and struggled a little bit late in the third quarter, I guess I should say, before they eventually just pulled away at the end. To me, though, the game was never in doubt. I was never uncomfortable watching this game. The Packers defense played outstanding. Edgerrin Cooper, rookie linebacker, played a great game all over the field, making tackles, interceptions, breaking up passes. Just a great game overall by the rookie linebacker. Welcome to the lineup. And they held the Seahawks to 208 total yards, 128 through the air, 80 on the ground. And up until a long touchdown run late in the game, the Packers were not allowing anything on the ground. 149 passing yards from Geno Smith. Sam Howell, who went in for an injured Geno Smith, 5 of 14 for 24 yards. Both quarterbacks throwing an interception in this game. And it's kind of stunning. It's kind of stunning a little bit that we are sad, that we are complaining, that we are unhappy with the game, with the Packer game, where they scored 30 points. We're acting like it was a close game the entire way, and I just don't get why there's people frustrated by this performance. Jordan Love, great game for him, 20 of 27 for 229 and 2 touchdowns. Should have had a third one, but Romeo Doubs, late to turn, missed a catch that would have been a score. When I'm looking at this game, the one big thing that stands out to me in a negative way is the coaching decisions going into halftime. They got the ball right around midfield at the 2-minute warning, and they played like they were scared. They played like they were scared to potentially put the ball back in Seattle's hands, and they ended up settling for a field goal where they easily could have attempted to score a touchdown. They got bailed out by a obvious pass interference call that gave them the ball around the 5-yard line. And they got that with like 4 seconds to go. But as I said, the frustrating thing on that drive was they could have scored a touchdown there if they had a little bit more urgency, a little bit more, I guess, not coaching scared. And as I've said before, and I'll say again, I don't have a lot of complaints about Matt LaFleur. But if I had one complaint about Matt LaFleur, that complaint would be that he coaches like Coach Fluffy sometimes. I know there's been people questioning his toughness and things like that from time to time, including some local Milwaukee radio hosts. But I think he's a great coach. I think he's become a very good coach. But that's kind of my concern and my unhappiness with LaFleur is sometimes he gets a little coaching tentative. And I think that's exactly what happened. I talked about it with the Lions loss, and we saw it again in Seattle. I talked about it with my 90-second recap that I posted following the Packer win, and it's just frustrating at times. But overall, it was a great win. And now this week, New Orleans is coming to Green Bay in potential snow, and it should be an interesting game along with that, as the Saints are hurting a little bit. But I'm going to stop there for a moment. I'm going to bring in my guest tonight from Tosh Sports, Tristan Thomas. Thank you so much for jumping on and joining me on such short notice.
That signal went up. I had to answer. Sorry about my absence and my lateness. Technology is still messing with me to this day, but good to be here. Good to chop it up with you. Happy holidays. Hope everything's going well for you on your end.
Yeah, same to you. Things are going well. I was just kind of recapping the Packer and Seahawks game and just kind of talking about that I don't really understand why people are acting frustrated that the offense stalled a little bit in the third quarter. I think the Packers knew that they had the game in hand and they pulled the foot off the gas a little bit. You got a tough stretch coming up with the playoffs as well. No use in putting the pedal to the metal and potentially getting guys hurt. But overall, I was happy with the win. So I guess throw you right into the fire there. What were your thoughts on the win Sunday night?
Yeah, third quarter, people have to understand Seattle also started to play a lot better in that third quarter as well, halftime adjustments. McDonald is a really good head coach as far as coaching up a defense. He's got them playing very, very well. Just half a game, one game out of the division lead. They were division leaders at that point. So you got to give credit where credit is due. But overall, I felt really good about that win, about the way they came in and absolutely mauled Seattle's defensive line, especially in that first quarter with an impressive drive. It's about 10 plays, 9 of them to Josh Jacobs. They set the tone. They were going to be physical. And this is what I said that Matt LaFleur was. And I got a lot of hate for it, where I said, look, Aaron Rodgers is not quite running Matt LaFleur's offense. Matt LaFleur wants to emulate what Kyle Shanahan is doing in San Francisco. He would much rather run the football, be physical, both offensively and defensively, and throw when you need to, and have a good quarterback back there that can do that and is not going to lose you the game by turning the football over. And we're seeing that. And I think we really especially saw that on Sunday. It really opened up a lot of people's eyes into how physical this Green Bay Packers team is and why they are quickly becoming the team in the NFC that nobody wants to see come playoff time.
Yeah, and the only issue I have with LaFleur, and I was talking about this too, and I talked about it on my 90-second recap that I posted after the win, is really just the before halftime debacle, I'll call it, where LaFleur almost pulled an Eberflus. He got a little, I don't even know. Like it sometimes he like coaches a little tentative, coaches a little scared. I call him Coach Fluffy sometimes. It's just he doesn't like. Well, if we turn the ball over here, we give the Seahawks good position here, and they get the ball in the locker room. So we just want to play it. That drives me crazy sometimes. Like they should have scored a touchdown before halftime. They had the ball at midfield at the 2-minute warning, and all they could get was a field goal. That's the only thing about the game that really pissed me off.
Yeah, agreed. I sat there and like, what are we doing? Like what are you doing? Like the clock management has to be much better than this. You're NFL players, you're an NFL head coach. What are you doing here? There was way far too much time. You had way too many timeouts for you not to come out with at least a touchdown. That's minimum
And they got
touchdown.
nailed by a penalty too. If you don't remember that, pass interference is what put them in field goal range. Otherwise, they would have had the ball on a probably 55-ish yard field goal as first half expired.
Yeah, which is absolutely ridiculous to waste a big play like that. People kind of look at the Packers and say, "Oh, the big plays, and yeah, they have some big catches. Christian Watson is known for that, those big time catches. But also drawing PI is also counts as a big play. You get that yardage, you get that spot, and it puts you into a good position. So to waste a big play like that, with all those timeouts, with all the time that you had, yeah, it was almost an Eberflus. He's lucky that they're not struggling the same way that the Bears were.
Yeah, and I was just talking about the Saints, and I think the Saints are coming in like a team that probably just want to finish the season and go home. They're on Rattler again. Kamara might be done for the year. Olave's on IR. Taysom Hill's on IR. They're a team that's hurting, and it should be an easy win. However, I think we all said the same thing about the New York Giants game last year, Tommy DeVito. You still have to take care of business. And I don't have any concerns that the Packers won't take care of business. I just don't want them to come in complacent thinking, we got this in the bag, which I kind of feel they went into New York last year thinking that.
Yeah, they came into New York with a lot of momentum, and they saw, a beat up, banged up, Giant squad, a guy nicknamed Tommy Cutlets. What kind of nickname is that? At the quarterback, and yeah, at the quarterback, and they thought they had that game in the bag, and it just goes to show you that they're professionals on the other side, and that is why they play the games. You still have to go out there, you still have to take care of business because anybody can be beaten on any day, and we saw that. So I hope the Packers are not taking for granted that this squad is pretty much in Cancun already. As far as mindset wise goes, that you still need to go out there. You need to handle business. You still haven't clinched a playoff spot. There's still a chance for you to possibly get the 5 spot. We don't know. Um, Handle business. Continue that momentum because momentum is a real thing. Playoffs are coming really soon. You want to get your spot. You want to stay healthy, but you want to continue that momentum and continue becoming the football team you feel you can become.
Yeah, you could definitely potentially get the 5, and I don't want to fall to the 7 seed. I think the 6 seed is perfect if you can't get the 5. If you get that 7 seed, you're likely going to Philly, then Detroit, or Detroit, then Philly. I know you're going to have to probably go to one of those stadiums sometime to get to where you want to be. But if you're the 6 seed, you do have a little bit of control over like where you go second round potentially if you win the first round, and you may not have to worry about it to the NFC Championship game if you get there. And who knows, Detroit and Philly could be gone by then.
Yeah, it's possible, man. It's possible, but I mean, you got to give Detroit the credit. They're still coming out there. They're still competing. They're still in the games, even though their defense is just absolutely just decimated. And I see a lot of people, Packers fans in particular, say, "Oh, the Packers had this many people on IR, and they were able to overcome and win the Super Bowl." Relax. It's two different situations. You had a Hall of Fame quarterback there, potentially. Well, not even potentially. He's regardless how you feel about him, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. Um,
Go ahead.
it was a different situation.
Good. And this Detroit defense, even without the injuries, the Detroit defense wasn't that great to begin with. I'm not going to throw Detroit away yet. They're still their record for a reason, but it's definitely an uphill battle for them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they got a bit of good news about David Montgomery not avoiding the surgery. He might come back for a playoff run, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. If you can't stop anybody, it really doesn't matter.
I'm not going to ask you for your prediction because I'm sure unless you've already recorded, published your next show, I don't want you to like spoil, people from that one. But I think it'll be an easy Packer victory. I think it's not going to be like we saw last year in the Packers and the Saints played. I think the Saints are decimated by injuries themselves, and the Packers are just a better team. And this is a game that if you want to be taken serious as a good football team, this is a game that you should win. And the 14.5 scares me a little bit, but I think it should be at least a 10 to 13 point win.
Yeah, I don't know about going 14 and a hook. That might be a little bit too much. But yeah, it should be pretty on paper at least, it should be a pretty comfortable victory, but that is why they play the games. You never ever know. Who knows? Spencer Rattler could come up there and rattle things up and make it competitive. Who knows? You just on any given Monday, anything could happen. So I feel comfortable with them saying that they'll win, but we shall see.
Yeah, and I should warn you, I left my computer charger at the office, and the roads are a little too crazy to try to get back to get it. So I'm hoping my battery holds out for the whole show. So I'm fingers crossed it works. I should be fine. We should be fine. But just forewarning, if I disappear all of a sudden, just steer the ship until I can get back on my phone. So before we go NBA Cup, one more thing I want to touch on and kind of get your thoughts on. The Aaron Rodgers documentary's out. I have not seen an episode of it. I don't really have a want to see it, but there was a clip that aired in it with Matt LaFleur talking, and in it, it was basically said about Ted Thompson is the reason why Jordan Love was basically drafted by the Packers. Now, there's one of two things that happened here. And I want to get your thought on this. But for me, in my opinion, there's one of two things that happened on this. One, Matt LaFleur misspoke. He meant to say Brian Gutekunst, and he misspoke. Or Aaron Rodgers is just so spiteful at Brian Gutekunst that he had it edited in a way that made Matt LaFleur sound like he was saying it was Ted Thompson and not Goody that made the pick. I'm leaning more on the production team splicing it to make it sound that way. But hey, it could have just been a misspeak too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, only Aaron Rodgers, the producers, and the editors truly know. It's those are the only folks that actually know. Um, it's a self-serving documentary. I like you have no real interest in watching it.
I'm not
Um,
getting Netflix until January 6th, so I can't right now anyway.
right, with we're all Netflix, so I went through, and obviously I'm just kind of scrolling through Netflix, and I see it there, and I just kind of like go over to it just to see, like, they play a kind of a preview, right? So I'm kind of watching this preview, and he's like in this van somewhere in the jungle and all that, and he's just spouting out some nonsense that I just could not understand. He's like, for me, so far gone. Outstanding thrower of the football, but as Ryan Clark would say, that's where it ends.
Yeah, and I honestly think it is, and I'm thankful for everything Rodgers did when he was a Packer, but I honestly think he just has a grudge against Goody that he won't let go. So he has a lot of respect for Ted Thompson. Ted Thompson's the man that took the chance on him. So let's kind of steer it in the direction I want it to go in. Kind of like The Last Dance a little bit. I love The Last
Yeah.
Dance documentary, but I don't think it takes a brain surgeon to realize that was Michael Jordan's viewpoint of what happened during The Last Dance. And there's probably some stuff that he skewed to make himself look better and other people not look so good. I think Aaron Rodgers probably trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I'll give Michael Jordan credit for as far as The Last Dance goes, because I mean he did show that he wasn't exactly the most pleasant to be around either, but there were villains in that. I remember living through it. I've seen that whole thing unfold, and it's like everything that you heard back then was kind of confirmed on The Last Dance. Like, oh wow, so that was the actual truth. That's actually what happened. With Rogers' documentary, I don't think he's there to really uh clear anything up. Like I said, he has an axe to grind. Um, I'm still of the belief, and he has to come to terms with it, that the best time to draft a quarterback is when you don't need one.
Yep, Lewis Riddick
Because it,
on draft night. I have a lot of
because
respect for Lewis Riddick. He should be running an NFL team.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean he's had some interviews. He's so smart, incredibly smart, and knowledgeable about the game itself, how to run a team. He should definitely be getting that opportunity. But it's like I am in firm belief of that, because eventually, when you don't need a quarterback, eventually you're going to. So it's good that you have one in tow. You have one that's learning and that's ready to go, because things are unfolding behind the scenes that not a lot of people get a chance to see. That, hey, we got to make this move. So he's got to. I don't think he ever came to terms with it. He might act like it on Pat McAfee's show and all that, and I don't think he's really come to terms with it, and he really needs to.
No, I don't think he has either. And I agree with you 100% that you need to draft a quarterback. Um, Basically, it's better to draft a quarterback before you need one, because you see teams chasing quarterbacks all the time moving forward. And I always
Look
talk
at
about
Atlanta right now.
exactly bad teams stay bad for a reason. And I don't know if it's accurate or true or not, but the comments about Woody Johnson nixing a trade because he didn't like Judy's Madden ratings is, if that is accurate, that is true. That is an example of bad teams staying bad for a reason. And the Jets, before they traded for Rodgers, they were chasing quarterbacks because they couldn't develop one.
Yeah, the whole. I mean, they're quickly becoming what the Bears are as far as an organization being run. It's just no matter what you do, they're axing coaches. They're constantly changing quarterbacks. They're chasing after these older veterans that are on their last legs and thinking they might be able to get a something going, and just does not work. So they're getting the Bears.
Our relaying information from Madden to him, keeping him from his foods.
Like, his response was great. Jerry Judy says he's like, I blame Ocho Cinco, who is a Madden rater, so he's responsible for those ratings. So he blamed him for that whole thing. But I think it worked out well for him. He's having a great season, a Pro Bowl season. So I mean, much better without Sean Watson in there. But that's a whole different story because the Browns are a mess right now too. But
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there.
they seem to always be a mess. They have Deshaun Watson, who had one good year at Houston, and then the combination of his off the field stuff, and then just holding out for a year, has not gotten back to that year.
Injuries,
off the field issues, and whatever. And then Jameis Winston has a great arm, but he's going to throw to whoever's open. It doesn't matter what color uniform they're wearing. So they're definitely a mess. But
the Jameis Winston experience.
moving on to the NBA Cup, and I should say the NBA in general. I'm still not really sure how I feel about the NBA Cup, but I will say I enjoyed watching the Bucks win and then celebrate the way they did after they did win the NBA Cup. And I think you got to build Darvin Ham a statue for if you're the NBA with the NBA Cup, because teams that he's been involved with, 14-0 in the NBA Cup. So what are your just general thoughts on this whole NBA Cup, and then just your thoughts on the Bucks and they're winning it this year?
I'm honestly enjoying the NBA Cup because you can tell that the players are taking it seriously. It's something to play for. There's something on the line. Players are taking it seriously. Now, the whole reason why the NBA did this was so the early parts of the season would be competitive. So that was really a big complaint, not just from players, but from fans all over the world. Like, yeah, I love the NBA, but early season, it's like nobody really starts watching it till after the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like the January, February after Super Bowl, that's when it starts getting serious, getting closer to the playoffs. So they brought in this NBA Cup to make things more competitive. They got the courts, they got the uniforms. And I think yeah. So they've done a pretty good job of making it mean something. And for you to have LeBron James winning it the first year, being the MVP of the Cup, and now Giannis winning it second year as well as MVP. Now it's like the standard has been set. So it's like, okay, man, you got two certified Hall of Famers, some of the greatest ever touch of basketball, have won this thing, and they're into it. They're taking it seriously. Man, we got to go out there. We got to go and get it. So I for one, like it. Some people are still on the fence about it. I think they would do better as far as where to have the finals. I love Vegas. Vegas is like a second home to me, but it seems like the crowd isn't really connected because they don't have an actual team, so they're not really truly connected. So there's some things that could be tweaked, especially schedule wise, which is just a mess. It's a nightmare as it is to schedule this whole thing. And those who don't make the tournament, they're going off of playing, and you're trying to figure out what games will count, which ones won't. It's in that regard, it's a mess. But I, for one, am a fan of the NBA Cup. I think players are really taking it seriously. It's giving them something to play for. It's created a lot of early season competitive basketball that carries you at least until December. When January, that's when people really start tuning in. It really starts to get a little bit more serious.
Yeah, I've seen things thrown out on trying to making the cup a little bit better too. Ideas such as if you win it, you qualify for the playoffs automatically, which I don't really like, because what happens if the NBA Cup champion ends up being like the Lakers and you're playing in the play-in tournament, and they barely made the play-in tournament, if I remember correctly, last year. I think you're setting a dangerous precedent there. But I will say this. The winner, so if you win the NBA Cup, one of your losses should be replaced with a win. I think that's one thing I can get behind. So Bucks have 11 losses or something like that?
12 yeah, 14 and 11.
Yep, make them 15-10 instead. Take away one of the losses, add it to the win column. That's something I can get behind, I think, because I think it gives you even more incentive to it gives you a little bit more incentive to play hard as well. It's like that could be a difference between a 1 seed and a 3 seed, or a 1 seed and a 2 seed, or a 6 seed and a 7. So I think that would be one tweak I think could happen, but I don't like the you're in the playoffs automatically if you win it thing.
For me, I don't know about it. So I don't understand why they don't make the championship game count towards your regular season record. All the games of the cup count up until that championship game. Make all the games count towards the regular season. That way you don't have to go and take a loss away because then you're like, okay, well, this team beat them. So now we just don't have the win. Like what's going on here? Like, so it logistically and rule wise and tiebreaker wise, that would be a nightmare. The easiest solution would just be to make that final game count. Make it towards the 82, be done with it.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the more logical thing to do. But I'm saying if you do have to change something about it, like I'm with you. Like the NBA Cup championship game is like an exhibition game. It's like a preseason game to some extent. Now they have $500,000 to play for, but at the same time, like I said, it's like a kind of an exhibition game. But I do like though, and I heard this today that Lillard is taking his winnings and he's basically handing it out amongst all the support staff of the Bucks, which I think is a great thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, Dame's just a good dude, and I think people are starting to realize that more and more. He's just a phenomenal guy. So that's definitely par for the course for him.
So Bucks rough start. Seems like they've righted the ship. Do you think they've righted the ship, or are they just in a hot streak right now?
I mean, people say, "Oh, such a small sample size." I'm sorry, you played 25 games and you're 12-3 in your last 15. That's a little bit more than a small sample size. That's over half of your season. So this is who they are. I think this is who they are. As long as they continue to move the basketball, as long as Doc Rivers continues to keep those young guys in rotation and doesn't turn to Pat Connaughton like he had to in the NBA Cup championship game because Middleton was down with illness. Um, and I think that's really the big turnaround is when he decided, okay, AJ Green is approved defensively. We know he can shoot the basketball. Andre Johnson, I mean, excuse me, Andre Jackson, he's better defensively. He can hit a corner three. The Bucks are league leaders in hitting corner threes. These two young guys give us something to our team that a guy like Pat Connaughton can't give us. So when he made those decisions and when guys started trusting each other, that's when you saw that turnaround. Uh, this is who they are. I don't think this is just some fluky hot streak. This is who the Bucks are. Now, obviously, it's a long season. You're going to go through your peaks and valleys. You're going to have some great times. You're going to have some lower points. You're going to be challenged, but this is who they are. They're getting it. They're getting to Doc's system. Doc even said that he, pretty much adjusted everything. The guys are trusting each other. He's playing the young guys, which is something I've been screaming about, even when Mike Budenholzer was at the helm, that they need to play these young guys for the vitality of this team going forward. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with minimum veterans giving you minimal minutes and minimum production. So that's something you cannot afford. So the infusion of the young guys with these veterans has completely turned this thing around. This is who the Bucks are going forward.
Yeah, I think if the Bucks would have pushed the young guys more in the playoffs last year, I think they end up beating the Pacers eventually. But that's neither near nor there. I just don't like the fact that Jackson Jr. and AJ Green barely played in the deciding game, and Pat Connaughton is getting a ton of minutes. But I think the Bucks are undefeated in games that Pat Connaughton doesn't play in. I think they're undefeated in games he hasn't made an appearance in. And hey, props to him yesterday or the day. I'm sorry, 2 nights ago. Goes onto the game, and he could have easily said, "Hey, I want mine now." But he stuck to his role. He knew what his role was, is to give his best effort defensively, and just be an extra body out there on the court to try to make things happen. So I do give him credit for that. But I like that it looks like Dame and Giannis are finally in sync. And then Middleton, it's like Giannis and Middleton didn't miss a beat when Middleton came back. But I think now the biggest thing is let's stay healthy. I know Dame's out tomorrow with a calf strain. My guess is he'll play Saturday, and then Middleton will be out probably Saturday. They're probably trying to split them on the back-to-back a little bit to get some more rest for those two legs. But I like what I'm seeing with the comfort level that Giannis and Dame is showing, and it's always great having Middleton back.
Yeah, the straw that stirs the drink. He is so key to what the Bucks want to do. And it's not like I'm looking for him to go out there and be what he was in the playoffs last year, the almost 25 points, 7 boards, doing everything he was defensively.
He does
Just
with Giannis and Dame on the floor.
exactly. And I mean, and it's like Doc said, he gets this team set in ways that he never really has had before. So he's so very important to getting guys in the right spots. He's very important to what these creation of shots, creating for himself and others. He is a very big key to what the Bucks want to do. So having him back, getting his legs underneath him, and not really having to rely on him as the 2 or the 1. He's a strong 3 still to this point. Is paramount for this team. It's definitely a plus.
Yeah, and it's nice having him as another ball handler option than Wright, who when you play him in small spurts, he's fine, but when you have to rely on him for longer stretches, it's not been a great signing so far with him. I was expecting a little bit more. I don't know, maybe I was wrong to expect more, but I expected just a little bit more of a floor leader at in minimal minutes, but he's struggling to give you that.
Yeah, and luckily it hasn't. I mean, I guess maybe in the early going it has, but luckily it hasn't really hurt the team. You've been able to overcome that, but it's yeah, you're trying things. I mean, and at least Doc is not reverting back to his old ways of just going to one of the veterans and just putting them out there just because that's what he's so used to and that's what he trusts. I think that's kind of what he did with Pat Connaughton, like in the NBA Cup final, is that he went to Connaughton because Connaughton's been in those situations where they've closed teams out in a championship situation. He has that experience. So at least props to Doc for not just going back, reverting back to what he knows and just sticking with some of the young guys if he was in that lineup and just kind of adjusting as they go.
Yeah. And I'm going to switch to some college football playoffs coming up. First ever 12 team playoffs starting tomorrow. I guess, what are your thoughts on year one of the 12 team college football playoffs? You think they got it right, or they still got some tweaking to do?
No, they did not get it right. They still did not get it right because I mean, you're still look. It still took public scrutiny and arguments to get a team like SMU, who was in the final of their conference tournament, into the actual playoff field, who were far and away one of the best teams in that conference, believe it or not. They're looking at their schedule and all this and that. It's like, doesn't matter. They got 10 wins and they were in their conference championship game. And it still took a last minute field goal for Clemson to even beat them. And it still took a win by another team to even get Clemson into that ACC final. So they still have a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of, I guess, blue blood bias. They were ready to stick Alabama in there, and it's like, come on, like, what are we doing? What you lost? You 3 L's and a loss to just an absolutely atrocious Oklahoma team to where you didn't score. So, like, how are you trying to put this team in the playoff field? I don't care that they have the number and the crimson on their helmet; they don't deserve it. So they're still trying to push those teams in there with more spots and not give the teams who have earned it throughout the year that true opportunity that they've earned the opportunity. So they still have it's more so they have a lot of work to do with their mindset and on themselves because it was still a whole mess.
I do like that the first round games are played at the better seeded home stadiums. I think that definitely is going to add some flavor to the games. Tennessee and Ohio State playing at the Horseshoe, Indiana, Notre Dame at South Bend. If they put Indiana and Notre Dame at whatever they're calling the Miami Dolphins field nowadays, that would probably barely fill anything. If you put Ohio State, Tennessee at Jerry's World, you're not going to probably have the same impact with the fans as you would at the Horseshoe. I just, that's the one thing I think they did do right, is having the first round matchups being hosted by the host schools rather than that. If you look at the NCAA volleyball tournament, the first 2 rounds for Wisconsin were played at the field house. The first 4 rounds was played at Nebraska, and I think just having that local flair, I think, just adds to it, and that's the one thing I am glad they did.
Yeah, it's you got to go where the money is, and the money is going to be at these schools. They're going to fill out their stadium. Oh, it's a playoff game. All right, well, we got to go and pack the house. No, oh man, we got to go and support our team, so we got to go and travel. We got to pack the house. We don't have to go to these big pricey cities. We ain't got to go down to Dallas and get these overpriced rooms and all that. Not yet, at least. It's just round one. Let's go to these schools. Let's take over their stadium. Let's have an old school college environment without all these big NFL stadiums and all these other, big arenas that we need to fill out. Let's just have that. It's something about a college campus and its atmosphere that just adds to the game. It's one reason why I love watching college as well. It's just something about the energy when it's packed and the teams are, fans are loud, teams are playing their hearts out. Even though it is pretty much professional with the NIL and all that stuff, that's a different story for a different day. But it's still a different field of college football as opposed to the NFL football when you get them into those college arenas.
Well, you say it's a different story for a different day, but I kind of want to keep making a story for today. You talked about where the money is, and I thought that was a perfect segue. I'm a believer that the concept of NIL is a good thing. I think the NCAA dropped the ball big time back. I can't remember the exact year, late 90s, early 2000s. There was an Olympic skier that wanted to play college football at Colorado. Can't remember the name right now, but he Olympic skier depending on endorsements to be able to pay his way to make the Olympics. Well, the NCAA was like, well, no, you're not eligible unless you give up the endorsement money. That should have been the start of the NCAA embracing a concept of NIL, because the players, I feel, should be able to make money on their name, their image, and their likeness. I think they should have that ability to do autograph signings, to have car dealerships sponsor them, to have restaurants or whatever. But they were forced into the whole NIL thing eventually because they were told, no, you have to do this, and they didn't have a plan in place to do any of it, and it's become like the old west with no rules or guidelines or anything, and it's going to be very hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube if you even can. So that's kind of my idea of it. I think it's in practice is a good thing. It's just how it's being executed has been a complete failure across the board.
In a lot of regards, you are absolutely correct. Shout out Dennis Krause. He and I have never ever seen eye to eye on paying the players as far as college players go. He was of the belief that it was never going to happen, and shout out Tom Pippins as well. Don't need to be name dropping, but we've all had conversations about this, and I've gone head up with them both and let them know, like, look, it's going to change. They're going to end up getting paid, and they should, because they're providing a service to the school. School's making money hand over fist. They should be in on that in some way, shape, or form. And they just were like not having it. And now it's here and crickets. But I got love for them both anyway. But as you said, it is kind of a little bit of the wild wild west as far as no real regulations on it or anything else. Um, but at the same time, the NCAA didn't have any real regulations on how they were getting over on the student athletes either. It's when you have to have the Shabazz Napier rule to where you could get extra food as an athlete because they weren't able to, because it was looked at as an extra um, a gift or improper benefit. That's their phrase, improper benefit, and they had to institute that rule that food is not a part of that. It's absolutely ridiculous, and you know that they are running amok as far as they're supposed to be the governing body, but they're running amok. So now NIL is here, and you hear that same complaint that, oh well, some certain schools and the way that they go about their NIL business they're running amok. Well, I mean, fight fire with fire. NCAA was getting away with it for how long? Now NIL is here. Now they got to readjust and adapt or perish. So now they're trying to adapt. Um, I don't foresee it getting too much crazier. I think they will be able to rein in certain parts of it. It's going to take a lot of talking and negotiating, but NIL is here to stay, as it should be. Kids should be getting paid for the name, image, and likeness, especially when you're marketing them as stars of your team. You're selling tickets off their backs, and you know, it's just the right thing to do. But NCAA ran amok for a long time. Now NIL is here to run amok. By fire with fire.
Yeah, unfortunately, the NCAA has a tendency to be late to the party, and as I was getting at too, like if they were to have been out in front of it, like when they have a Olympic skier who they could have used they could have used him to market a change in the NCAA that you could get endorsements as a college athlete. They should have embraced it back then, but they didn't, and they were late to the party. The story of the NCAA. They're always late to the party.
Yeah, and it's always after they've gotten taken to court, by the O'Bannon brothers. They
Yeah.
were really the impetus of this about getting paid off of their name, image, and likeness from the video games that they used to sell. So that was really the jump off point of the whole NIL thing was the fact that, oh, well, look, we need to get paid because y'all got paid off of our name, image, and likeness. And I mean, we don't think that's right. So now here we are with NIL, and they were really the genesis of that.
And then final thing before we go, Luke Fickle. He deserve an extra
Mm.
year, or should the Badgers have just bit the bullet, ate the money that's left, and just shoo him to the door now?
Give him this year because there's absolutely zero excuses. It's his recruits, it's his coaches, it's his plan. We all everybody and their mama told him that the air raid was not going to work in Wisconsin with the personnel that he had. Um, and look at it. It's like you can't come into a school that's known for its offensive line and running game, and most recently over the past, I don't know, about 10 seasons, their defense. But most notably, they're known for their offensive line and running backs. You can't come in and say, oh, well, you know what, we're going to abandon what made Wisconsin, and go to the air raid, which most teams have figured out anyway. I think it's going to work. So I figured he would get this year. I wasn't so much in a rush for him to be shown the door. Am I frustrated with the results that he's not getting? Yes. But now there's no safety net. This is all you. This is all you. So go get in there, figure it out. We've all seen their schedule for next season. I'm telling you right now, I'm not seeing a whole lot of wins. Unless this team improves by leaps and bounds, I'm not seeing a whole lot of wins for next season. Um, at that point, we'll see where he ends up, and then you got to have that discussion.
Yeah, and I know the nature of college sports, it's about winning and losing, or sports in general, it's about winning and losing. But for me, next year for Badger football, it's not necessarily about wins and losses. It's about seeing a better product on the field. And I got pushback from people, but I still hammer this drum. The downturn of the Badger football program started right around 2020 and COVID year, and I'm not blaming COVID for it, but that's when the downturn started. Paul Chris kind of, they lost the recruiting coordinator in Michigan State, and he never replaced them. Lost his quarterback coach for another job. He never replaced them. He hires an offensive coordinator to, quote, modify the offense, but you could see Paul Chris fingerprints all over it all the time. And player development, to me, really suffered and is still suffering today. And that, to me, is when the downturn really started. The wins weren't as impressive anymore. And I know the NFL, I always talk about it's not about style points. Well, to me, college football is all about style points. When you're playing a Western, Eastern, Central, Northern, Eastern Michigan, you should be blowing them out. When you're playing Buffalo and you're playing Washington State, you should be blowing them out. Not losing to Washington State, you should have been blowing them out. And the wins became uglier and the losses became uglier. They used to. I'm not a believer in. I can't even think of the word I want to use. But anyways, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, they would play the teams extremely tough. They would lose, unfortunately, because the talent level is really big. But they would play them extremely tough, and the game would come down to the fourth quarter. Those losses became uglier and uglier. And I think this year was more of the bottoming out, and I need to see better product on the field. The wins and losses may not come this year, but if we're still seeing the lack of adjustments, the lack of any motivation. The seems to be just sleepwalking through the first half or sleepwalking through the second half. If that's what we continue to see, then Fickle can see the door. But if they're playing tough, the wins become better, the losses become harder fought battles, kind of like Oregon and Penn State this year, then I think we're going in the right direction and the wins will come. I just think like that's what we have to kind of focus on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They have had in Fickle's time a case of the not give a dams. It just seems like they go out there and they're just,
Chris, but yeah.
like it just seems like they go out there and just go through the motions. And there were certain games where like Oregon, most notably, they played them tough. They were in position to win that game, but you just had that feeling like, how much longer can they keep this up before Oregon puts a drive together and take that game? And that's just how it feels every time they're in a big game. Where it's like, oh wow, they actually showed up today. But how long are they going to show up for? Are they going to show up with full 60 minutes, or are they going to cough it up within that last 5 to 10 minutes? So we can't see that out of Luke Fickle's teams anymore. He goes out there and he has team on his back, and together everyone achieves more. Okay, what have you been achieving? So I agree with you. It has to be a case of we need to see a better product on the field. We need to see players that are out there who actually care, who actually give a damn, who are not just going through the motions, who are just saying, hey, look, I got my NIL money, I'm here, I'm trying to get my degree, whatever, this is just a part of what I have to do to get it done. You're out there to play football, and when you're out there to play football, you're out there to win ball games. You're out there to compete. There's got to be a certain sense of pride in that, and it just feels like we have not seen that in Luke Fickle's tenure. So whatever it is he needs to fix, and I'm with you. I don't see a whole lot of wins, but if you do see a better competitive product on the field, I think that conversation will be a little bit more positive going to the future, as opposed to, well, you know what? Here's your box, get your stuff.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Love to get you on some more frequently. Love talking, pretty much, I guess, any sport with you. Enjoy it. So I appreciate it. If you want to let the viewers and listeners know, they can find the next episode of your show and how to find it.
Yeah, TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Toss is on hiatus until the new year, literally the new year. We got a new episode dropping on the 1st. So to start your new year off right, we're right now just kind of observing, getting all the information we need to, and then we're going to be able to go and talk about it for the brand new year. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. There's a Facebook page there. And of course, I'm on Threads. I'm on X. Come and find me at the 20 double. And, yeah, I'm out there.
So I could have asked you for your Packer prediction.
Yes, you could.
So want to throw that out there really quick?
I've got the I've got the Packers winning this one. And it could go either way. Like I said, you always feel on paper when you have a Packers team who's 10-4 going up against a team who's got double-digit losses, you feel like it should just be, that's easy, that's a cakewalk. But again, any team can beat anybody on any given day. You got that feeling in the pit of something like it could be a little bit more close than it needs to be, or it could just be absolute domination. But I do have them winning that ball game. Let's go 35-24, just to make it exciting.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too exciting and we don't have our blood pressures go up a little bit. But I appreciate everyone watching. Podcast version will drop tomorrow. You can find every podcast ever done with Talking Sports with Evan, or whatever name I was calling it once upon a time, as well at sportsthoughtsfromevan.substack.com. You can find me on X at Evan with Sports, Facebook, and YouTube. Talking Sports with Evan. And make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel as we move past the college football playoffs. I'm going to be putting out a lot of college football, or I should say NFL draft conversations. I'm looking to get some guests lined up that'll be YouTube exclusive. So make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. That's Talking Sports with Evan. Get back at you sometime next week. Not 100% sure what day yet with the holidays thrown in there, but we'll be back at it next week talking hopefully about a Packer win and getting you ready for another Packer game and more. This has been Talking Sports with Evan. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back.